Welcome back to Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B2SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. This week's Between Two Bs podcast features Cherie Edelson of Member Marketplace, who's building commerce hubs for small business groups like shopiowa.com, and Joe Brown of SMB.co, building a Zillow for small business, connecting SMBs looking to sell their businesses and verified buyers. Join us for insights into their innovative marketplace solutions.
Good day, everybody. Dave Walker here with the B2SMB Institute. You know, we come across a lot of new businesses that are entering this great, vast business to small business marketplace. And while they have ambitions to maybe one day be like some of our members, Verizon or Square or Microsoft, you know, everybody believes they want and have the next great thing. We really want to make sure that we're identifying those startups that really actually are doing something really, really cool before they are maybe household names. So with that in mind, I want you to meet Cherie Edelson, who is a fabulous entrepreneur and who has created something called Member Marketplace. Welcome, Cherie. Why don't you take a little bit of time and explain exactly what Member Marketplace is, and then I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah, so Member Marketplace, we create online marketplace communities for member-serving organizations or even local communities to help their small businesses, their members, align through one platform and make it easy to find, discover, buy, shop from that member community online. So it's a marketplace for your members, for your businesses.
Very simple, very straightforward. How did you come to this idea of the need for or a problem to be solved that Member Marketplace was gonna solve for?
Yeah, maybe different than some of your other companies that you work with or align with. I never really intended to be a business owner or a small business. I worked with kids and was my background before. And I worked with college students. And at my second child, I decided to stay at home because I knew I wanted 4 and to cut losses with childcare and all of that. And about 6 months in, I realized I love being a mom, but I can't do just this. I need something else. So it was around the time that Pinterest was really kind of booming, and I found different tutorials of crafts and things to make. And one of those happened to be girls' hair bows. And I grew a hair bow business, starting when I just had 2 boys, but I eventually had a girl to put them on. And did that for about 5 years, making and selling them at farmers markets, sold them on Amazon, my own website, did school cheer bow orders, just kind of grew that up. And it was a little winter craft fair in Iowa that I had done. And it snowed a whole bunch the night before and nobody came. Literally maybe one person walked through the door and they were tied to another business that was there. And I thought there's got to be a better way. So I called my husband. I said, hey, put the boots on the kids. We're going to shop from these businesses. Because it was right around Christmas time too. And if you or any of your other listeners have ever been there, when you're a craft farmers market business, you put a lot into these fairs, these one-day events, whether it's inventory to make up your goods, the time and effort away from your family to make them up, the cost and inventory. And when nobody comes, it's just really, it's a loss in a lot of different ways. And so we went around and we shopped from all these different businesses and we thought, oh my gosh, this business is really cool. Look at this product. And you didn't know that they existed unless you came to this little winter craft fair at a school in Iowa. And we thought there's got to be a better way for people to find, who they are outside of these one-day events. And so my husband was a web developer and I was already selling online in multiple different ways and thought, can we kind of create a marketplace for these, a craft fair online? And so we started in 2017, creating a marketplace and realized it could maybe turn into something, and joined a startup accelerator after that to kind of branch that out to more communities.
And boy, that must have been a great accelerator, because you guys have really, built a very healthy business with a lot of representation across the country, and a wide variety of applications. Anything that really has a community, you're kind of fitting your marketplace to that community. Talk a little bit about the moment that you realized, oh my gosh, this isn't just an observation that me and my husband made. This actually is a very real business. What was that moment? When did it really hit you?
the local TV station had reached out, I think near the holiday season, and said, hey, can we do a story on your business? And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. My sister was one of the vendors on the marketplace. She made cupcakes. And they also wanted to interview her. So she came to my house and had some cupcakes ready. We cleaned, literally, they said, like, we have to be there in like an hour. And I have 4 children. Like I said, we had to like clean up tons of beads from a party the weekend before. It was crazy. But they came, they filmed the interview, and it went really well. And then I had a colleague that had referred me then to the Startup Accelerator, like, hey, you should reach out to these people. And she introduced me to them. And that's when I was like, should I, like, is this something we could do? And it was those first conversations where it felt like it was too big for me. I wasn't sure if we were doing that. We'd always kind of done these, web design businesses and hair bows and now this marketplace, but we never really kind of thought outside of that. And that was the first, like, maybe we can dip our toe in this water and see if it's something for us.
What were some of the early prototypes like? I mean, obviously your husband's a web developer, so he's familiar with the whole wireframe to minimally viable product process. I mean, how were you guys kind of getting proof of concept and proof of value for this as you were building it? I had to go out and talk to every single business owner in the very beginning and really convince them why they should be on there, offering free to this one, or, hey, we'll take a very tiny commission of this one. Maybe you can do a monthly, like really every single business owner. We started onboarding some of their products for them. Like we'd look at their website or if they had one, most didn't at that time, or their social media page. We'd put in their products for them. We'd write the description. We'd be like, hey, this is what it looks like. It's really similar to what you post on Facebook, except we're putting it into a product where people can click and add it to cart versus just like telling them about it. And then they're like, how do I buy this? We'll come to my craft fair next month. We were showing them the power of doing that. So it was a lot of handful holding businesses in the very beginning. And we went through a couple different templated sites, trying to customize it on our own from there. And then after the Startup Accelerator, then it was kind of do that same thing with the Chamber of Commerce. They're like, hey, we could put your businesses on here. Let us help you. And then it was onboarding their businesses, still talking to business owners. And 2020 is when kind of things, shot up and changed. And we kind of revamped the platform and got a team and everything kind of, moved on from there. So fast forward to 2025, where are you right now?
So in a little bit of a pivot again, we've done e-commerce, kind of like mini Amazons for communities where you can go and discover, shop, buy from those businesses, whether it's the state of Iowa and shop from local retailers and handmade businesses in Iowa, and that's partnered with the state of Iowa, or the Santa Fe marketplace, which is just businesses in Santa Fe. We still have those operating, but we realized there's a lot more businesses than just the physical product-based retailers. And there's a lot more options now online than there were for some of them. So maybe the need has kind of changed different than the pandemic. But there's still the need for organizations to get their businesses online together to be able to showcase them better. And most of the resources that exist out there are online directories. Here's our directory of our businesses. And I think I'm going to go to my deathbed saying it, but like a directory is not helping anybody. Like it's yellow pages online. Nobody goes and looks through your directory anymore. It's like, hey, I'm going to look through your directory to find out who your members are.
I think it's worse than the yellow pages. It's yellow pages without ads.
It is. And I try so hard to be nice or patient as I explain it sometimes, but it's not what users want to do in today's online society as they're, looking online for things. And so we're trying to take the directory on steroids. There's still a directory in there. You can figure out who the members are. You can see their logos and their information. You can also then view them on a map. You can see their social media pages from there. But then the businesses also have access to log in, add their products, add their services, their announcements, their jobs, their updates. They're kind of a hub of whatever activity of the members or businesses that you're supporting into one platform, and people can stay right there. They can look through the different offerings. They can directly message a business. They can go in and make requests and say, hey, I need catering services, and it will spit out a lead to all the people who do catering. Just really trying to make it be a much more useful tool at a much lower, quicker price point that we can turn on really quickly for organizations and have it, drive impact right away.
So with the again, I know that these sites are really all over the U.S. Do you have any idea how many small businesses are actually kind of included in the marketplace?
We have about 5,000 or so from between our marketplaces right now. And then our database, I could look back, but like throughout our time, there've probably been maybe 8 to 10,000 or so, and at some point in time that have been affiliated in our marketplaces.
How much does it matter that you provide something in the form of a member marketplace that has a local look and feel, or that is branded from whatever the Chamber of Commerce is or the association is. I know you did one with a tech group outside of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
How much control does the association or the platform of the marketplace want to control how it looks and feels?
It's part of our goal, and I think they all prefer that as well. It's their marketplace. We want it to be their marketplace, but we're running the program. It's our system in the back end, so we can make sure it works well. But we'll brand it in their colors. It's got their logo on it. It really kind of is a look and feel pretty similar to their website. We manage the back end, so it doesn't have to interfere with their website and conflict with their email capabilities. That way we can turn it on super quickly. But we want it to feel like their marketplace. It's theirs, whether it's the Staten Island Chamber, it looks like Staten Island Chamber's webpage and their businesses, or Mass Tech Leadership Council. It is a goal to really, that's one of the main pieces. If you're not going to a Google, webpage and it looks like Google's, this is Mass Tech's member market.
So 5,000 small businesses right now. What's the consumer response? I'm just curious. Are they kind of like, it's their third choice to find a local option, or is it their first choice to find a local option for something they're trying to buy?
So it depends. So State of Iowa is just a good example. It's partnered with the State of Iowa Economic Development Authority. It's on behalf of small businesses. So if you're a small business, State of Iowa, you can sell on the platform. It's a free resource to you provided by the state. That one's gone on since the pandemic now, and it's got a pretty good following. And there are people who, a newsletter comes out, or we post something on social media, that are coming in and grabbing it right away. There's a lot of businesses that might use it as their main website. Maybe they don't have a website, or they don't have an e-commerce website. This is their platform for that. So their customers are coming back over and over again. And others, we see people, especially during the holiday time, it's really fun. We'll see orders come in from California and shipped to somebody in West Virginia, and it has nothing to do with Iowa, but it was either a good product, the right price point, they found it through SEO. There's just a lot. We've had orders from all 50 states for Shop Iowa, for example. So people are coming in from wherever for lots of different reasons. And sometimes we can kind of tell, and sometimes we know it's, just an SEO result, and they found it and it fit their need. But that's the advantage that we're always trying to say, like, especially in the e-commerce one, but customers aren't just the ones that can walk into your physical retail business. Not today's age anymore. And so how do we help them get more discoverable, list their offerings online, and help people who are looking for their stuff find them easier? And that's really kind of the goal. So maybe you want to support local, and that's why you're coming to Shop Iowa, but maybe you just want a cute pair of boots, and you happen to, search for them and found them on there and shipped them to wherever you live in New Mexico.
You mentioned, supporting local, and obviously coming out of the pandemic. And since the pandemic, and much has been written about and statistics presented that consumers really are trying to shop local. They really are not just trying to do what the right thing was to do back in post-pandemic months. They're really genuinely trying to change their behavior and not go to Amazon at a drop of a hat and get everything from Temu or whatever. When you are building this as a presence for local small businesses, are they seeing basically, wow, we're finally able to frankly present ourselves at something different than our physical location, that they don't necessarily have the appetite to go full on e-commerce, but they're able to kind of get online and respond to consumers? Is that kind of the feedback that you're getting from both buyers and sellers that are on the platforms?
Yeah. So a few maybe examples of that. One, there's a business kind of in a smaller town in Iowa. It has a pretty good online presence and a good kind of local following. Had things kind of figured out, but it kind of joined. Somebody said she should, and she joined up, and she said, one, she's got a number of orders through the marketplace that she maybe didn't anticipate or wasn't sure, but she has a number of people who walk into her shop for the first time that said they found her on Shop Iowa. I think that's the other side of it too. I don't know how many times I've driven past a business and I was like, I wonder what's in there. But I'm on the way to a soccer game, or I'm on the way to, wherever. Mm-hmm. I don't usually just where am I going to drive to today and randomly pull up in a parking lot of a business I've never been to before. It doesn't happen very often. And so this is a way for them to kind of virtually do that, and then give them a reason to go in store, because now they know what's in there. Maybe they don't already follow your social media. Maybe nobody's ever told them you need to go to this storefront. And so this is another way for them to discover, something that has, cool gifts, and they can be a customer online and be a customer then in person too. And then others, yeah, it really helps them kind of dabble and dip their toe into e-commerce and see if there is a piece there. We had another business that tried a few times to get online and do her own web presence. And it just is a lot when you're managing a storefront, you're managing a new family. They had a brand new baby. They took over something from somebody else and they're trying to get all of their ducks in a row, always trying to like treading water, never fully be able to do it. And they were able, rather than like a website where you got to brand it, you've got to set up the whole pieces, you're in charge of the tech and the everything behind the scenes. They could add 4 or 5 products to their storefront and get that going and tell people they've got this online, then go back and add a few more later. And then they have a team of people that they can consult with or say, hey, your product photo looked, not so great. Here's what's wrong with it. The lighting's bad. It's blurry and there's a lot of clutter in the background. You should, phrase like this. So they just have for those that need it, there's coaching and support available to them and they're not doing e-commerce on their own if they're not ready.
I'm just curious about your entrepreneurship journey, your journey in being someone who it surprised yourself that you're now a small business owner yourself. You're an entrepreneur. You're building a business. Talk a little bit about the moments along the way. You actually use the word pivot. I sometimes use the word pirouette because it's not a full-on twist of the body. It's just kind of a little bit of a flare change. But what are some of the steps along the way that or things that happened along the way that made you change direction or frankly modify what you were building?
I was thinking about this. I had a mentor with the SBDC when I was first starting out. And with my first meeting in his office, he was saying, gosh, I'm really excited to see what this looks like a few years down the road. Like, where is this going to be, 5 years, 10 years down the road? And in my head, I thought like, what do you mean? Like, this is going to be exactly what it is. Why would it be anything different? This is great. But one of the very first pivots is we were going kind of directly to small businesses and trying to onboard them all individually to our platform. Then as we broke out to try to go to these organizations and create a marketplace for them, we still had like a small fee to the organization, a small fee to the business, and they could have different options. And there was too much kind of confuse, you lose, and this business dropped off. What would that mean for the organization? It was a lot to kind of monitor and manage. So then the pivot right before the pandemic, which really kind of turned serendipitous, is we said, hey, there's a fee to the organization. It's free to the small businesses. And so we upped the fee, made it so their members, got it for free. And then the pandemic, it just made it that much quicker because they didn't have to go check with every business and we didn't have to try to talk to every single one and sit down for coffee in locations where we weren't, even present. And it kind of helped that go. So that was a big pivot then. And then this kind of next pivot or pirouette is noticing the e-commerce. Now, back when we started in 2017, 18, 19, before the pandemic, not a lot of people were online. More and more people have got online and some still need that help. But the communities aren't as ready to help them adopt it. And now that there's more options, but they still need that connectiveness. And so our price point on the e-commerce was much higher versus what we can do in this kind of quickly turn out a marketplace in, a couple of hours and brand it and have it ready to go. We wanted to get that cost down. We wanted to make it easy to onboard their members so we could pull them all in with an import, launch it, their directory, email all the members and everything just really quickly. And so that was where we kind of went to make sure we could provide the most value for minimal funds and then kind of build that value as they utilize it and engage on there. So that's kind of our most recent pivot that we're still in. We still have some of our legacy e-commerce marketplaces and we'll still pursue some of those. But we just kind of can see the trajectory of this new version and more impact for more businesses and more organizations, frankly, in this new version.
That just sounds like a great evolutionary step. That's not really a pivot. That's just, hey, we recognize we're going after where the market is. And kind of speaking to that, I think we're all familiar with the physical Main Street. We all get that. We all get the fact that small business owners step out front of underneath their sign outside their front door, and they wave at the business to the left of them, and they wave at the business to the right of them. We all kind of know the physical nature of a Main Street. But do you think, and are you really kind of on the cutting edge of building a virtual Main Street where really small businesses are not just connecting with each other physically on the street, but physically on that highway of digital commerce that's out there?
Definitely. That's where we're going. That's where the vision I've had in my head for a long time. And I think it doesn't have to be tied to this physical street, to this physical community. It could be a women business owner marketplace. It could be anybody who is aligned together in a certain way to be able to share their offerings, their promotions, their resources together into one platform. And so it doesn't have to be tied to any physical location at all, but just those that are building in the same network and identify with some, whether it's each other or some unique customer. I think any of those are the new main streets in that regard.
Do you ever sometimes look yourself in the mirror and go, I think I understand now what my secret sauce is. I understand what differentiates me from other entrepreneurs, or this is what I've surprised myself on my ability to do something as, some specific thing as obviously a young, successful entrepreneur that you are.
I run the balance of sometimes like getting really passionate and be like, I'm building the coolest thing that exists. And then, the next day of like, I don't know what I'm talking about at all. Nobody thinks I'm cool. This is never going to work. And I think that's most entrepreneurs maybe every day. And sometimes one is winning out over the other. And so that's, I would say, entrepreneurship for me. I think I can get very passionate about my idea. And I think when I'm that way, I can sell people on it. I think my other side of that, though, is I can get very wordy and I can get a lot in there. And I've thrown in some, parts that people can grab onto, but then like, let's walk this back again. What do you mean? So I think my passion can sometimes also get in the way of my message because it all gets jumbled into one. I don't know if that's the right answer you're going for, but
no, I think it's a great answer, because I think that, part of maturing as an entrepreneur is recognizing, frankly, how to merge those two things, the passion that you have for your idea, and then kind of the practical, wait a minute, I got to make this work. And what is going to make it work? And that's the constant day in, day out, hour by hour challenge of making that idea work. As you kind of think of where you were in 2017 and where you are now, how has your definition of success changed, if at all?
I don't think there's an end goal for success, for sure. I think once you hit one, I remember when we got that like first $20,000 check for the startup accelerator. I was like, this is so much money. How will I spend all of this? This is amazing. And so definitely like the threshold for like money that you want and need to grow and sustain and do all the cool things you want to do, that has, skyrocketed in that regard. I think success is just like the next plateau that you're like looking to get to. I don't think there's this one end all be all, like I'm in a success. And I think that's where maybe I'm one of 12 kids. I know you said like, a background, a little bit about you. So I always have this, like, if I ever get too big for my britches or too, think I'm too cool for a minute, like part of me wants to chop my own self down before a sibling does. It's like, no, wait, hold on. I know I'm not like there yet. Like I'm getting there. I'm on my way and I'm working towards this, but I think I always want to be the first one before somebody else could be like, hey, what about this? So I am working towards pursuing success, like getting to my next milestone and then going up from there again. Like that's where I feel like it's like a stair-step ladder. There's not one end all be all, I reached it.
Well, I, for one, really love your concept. I love the idea, and I love what you've built and how you've built it. And I think that I can speak on behalf of a lot of our members. You are the definition of a passionate business person who wants to help small businesses be successful, which is kind of our entire community. So I really appreciate you doing this and kind of telling us your story. We'll provide all your contact information and site and all the rest of that kind of things. I think that there's a number of our members who I'm sure will be interested in talking to you, just because they're trying to figure out new and different ways in which to provide value to their small business customers, whether they're in the thousands or in the hundreds of thousands. They're trying to figure that out. And I think you've got just a great concept and a great execution that's highly adaptable. So again, thanks so much for doing this, Cherie.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
If you sell at scale to small business, you need to be here. The 7th Annual B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum, May 14th and 15th in Sonoma, gathers business to small business executives from dozens of major brands to talk shop. The winning, keeping, and growing of SMB customers. Our 2025 B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum extends the central theme of our 2024 events, selling successfully in a small business marketplace that's seen extraordinary growth and change in the last 2 years. Combining keynotes from B2SMB sales superstars with frequent small-sided breakouts, the 2025 Leaders Forum presents research-based insights, best practice playbooks, and a steady dialogue of shared wisdom on winning, keeping, and growing SMB customers. Our B2SMB Institute Leaders Forum sold out these last 2 years, so it's not too early to save your spot at our top-to-top networking and strategy exchange for senior B2SMB execs. Get your tickets today at b2smbi.com/leadersforum25. Are you ready to master the new sell? Join us for the 6th Annual Leaders Forum in Sonoma, hosted by the B2SMB Institute. Tickets now on sale for the B2SMB Institute 2025 Leaders Forum. Members attend free. Email info@b2smbi.com for more information.
Hey, Joe Brown of SMB.co. Great to have you here on the Between Two Bs podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. It's great to be here. Really excited to chat again and catch up.
Yeah, and I'm excited too because this whole series that we're gonna do the first of every month, really focusing on and featuring new startups, new companies, basically new presence in the B2SMB space. Yours really intrigued me, and we'll get to the thing that really intrigued me the most. But why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself and on your company and anything else you want to tell us about where you are right now in your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So myself, Britt Carroll, and Mike Hillenmeyer, we've started SMB.co. Myself, I grew up in Greenville, Ohio, and Bellefontaine, Ohio. I moved to Cincinnati when I was in the 4th grade. So I've kind of, grown up in Cincinnati my whole life. Yeah. Big family, big, loud family, 4 older sisters, 1 younger brother, Navy dad, and a hippie mom, and have been in Cincinnati my whole life, but travel around in a van part-time with my wife, and we travel a lot. No kids, but we have a nice dog, and we love building tech.
What made you how'd you get into love building tech? I'm always fascinated by this story from tech-savvy entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I actually went to school for firefighting. In high school, I was like, I'm just going to go be a firefighter. I didn't even take my ACT exam or anything like that. I was just like, I don't really need any of this stuff. I don't need to learn a whole lot to become a firefighter. I'll just go to training and stuff. So I went and did that at Cincinnati State, which is apparently like the 3rd best fire school there is, which is cool because it's in our backyard. So I went and did that. And then at the very end, as I was doing ride time and everything else, I just tore my meniscus in half and was on crutches for 8 months. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go get my bachelor's degree in marketing, because I had been in high school, did like this program called DECA, which was like you help people market their small businesses. And I was like, I'm going to go get finish up my degree in marketing. So I went and did that. And then I ended up building my first small business where I was like refurbishing old axes actually and selling them online. It ended up becoming like an outfitter business. We made a big social, a bunch of big social accounts to help us sell more of those products and those axes and all these other outdoor equipment. And, kind of just fell in love with like building stuff. Like that first Shopify store was like my first kind of foray into entrepreneurship. And it was like fun and something that it's like, you didn't need anybody's permission to go create. So it was just kind of, that was the first step into it. Yeah. And then I think since then I've built like 200 apps, have helped a lot of small business owners in my lifetime. And I just love helping other people, good people.
That's terrific. What do you think your strength is? Is it basically in just kind of the underlying coding? Is it really in building terrific wireframes? Is it really paying close attention to the user experience? Is it all the above? What is it?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned wireframes. I own wireframes.com. I think at some point I would have said maybe wireframes and like UX specifically, and making sure that like a user's experience within an app is like really good. I'm like a career marketer turned developer, sort of turned founder / leader. I wouldn't say that, my team would consider me the best leader, but we just trying to get better every day. That's really all I expect of others, and I expect that of myself. So I think my strengths really are in the marketing and the user aspect. Like I just want to know if people care about a specific product or a specific feature, and just get down to the bare bones of like what the value is in those things, and like building that has become a lot easier over time. But I think that's kind of where my strength lies, along with, generally just finding and working with good people. Like, I think that's a tough skill to learn. And I think you do that over time, but that's what I also love doing.
Yeah, I think it's Scott Galloway that says one's strength is in the agency of others, which is a nice way of saying that basically who you surround yourself with is really going to lead to your success. And I can certainly attest to that.
Yeah.
Because I've been very blessed to have a lot of really great people around me along this long journey. Let's talk about your company, because I want you to just give that kind of wonderful soundbite description of what SMB.co is.
Yeah, I know you love that one. We are Zillow for small businesses. We want to make it much simpler to buy and sell small businesses. There's a lot of complicated processes involved in M&A in general. And we just think that, owners deserve a better experience.
And I mean, yeah, you had me at Zillow. I mean, when I first heard that line to describe what you were doing, I thought that is just a brilliant differentiation of something that is an old, tired, almost dinosaur-like business process of selling small businesses, the brokering that's going on. What was it? What are some of the key problems that kind of you discovered or you found out about the business of selling small businesses? What were some of the problems that you were trying to solve?
Yeah. So it goes back a little bit farther. So I kind of fell in love with marketplaces in general, right? And I think the biggest issue we've sort of uncovered is the fact that there's just not enough support for small business owners. And this giant wave of, the silver tsunami, whatever you want to call it, there's an actual large number of businesses in the millions that are going to end up selling over the next 15 years. And we can talk about that all day long, but at the end of the day, there are tech-enabled brokerages that are trying to privatize the ability to run these deals well. There are brokers and M&A firms that sort of help run these deals, but I actually don't see how any of them could help cover those millions of businesses and those owners and supporting those owners that need to sell these businesses. So the largest thing that we are trying to solve is making sure that they have enough support over the next 10 years. Because the likelihood that these other companies that are running a couple hundred deals a year could cover those millions is just not possible. So we set out to build like the platform that would allow us to aggregate everything and provide the best, fastest opportunity to be able to sell a business, and provide a lot more support than others can provide right now. This just my goal is really to help sell the next million businesses for these owners, rather than focusing on making as much money now on the first 100 deals we do. It's great to make money, but at the end of the day, if we're able to help sell 1 million businesses at whatever fees we end up charging or pricing we end up, charging, like I think that is a win for us over just a straight up revenue goal.
Well, when you put the numbers behind it, the perspective of 1 million small businesses potentially being sold over however many next 10, 15 years, I mean, that is an absolutely enormous total available market. And I think that if you really are like Zillow, kind of entering this space that's kind of crustified and doing something really different, I think that's terrific. I mean, that's got tremendous potential. When a small business goes to sell, what are some of the challenges that they face that you guys are that you're trying to figure out how to address or are addressing?
Yeah, there's probably a million problems with the current market. The biggest issue that they face is actually understanding what their business is worth. A lot of these owners have pretty high expectations, and then these buyers are coming in with they're thinking, and they're being sold this idea that they can go buy a business with no money down and find a small business owner who's going to give it to them for like 25% of what the total value is. And helping them meet in the middle is actually one of the biggest issues that we try to solve. And that actually just starts with the owner and making sure that they are aware of what their business is worth. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that they get paid for their life's work. Like working in a business for 20 years and owning it that long, they deserve as much as they can get, at the end of the day. And you need to be able to find a buyer that's willing to pay that price. But helping them set correct expectations based on those things is kind of one of the biggest issues that we're challenged with. And we've been able to find a lot of opportunities and creative ways to sort of solve that issue. For example, like our Zillow, just like Zillow has Zestimates, we have a business bestimate. So we call it a bestimate, and every business in America deserves one of these things. And it's something that they would normally go to a valuation expert and pay $3,000 for, but we just want to open source that for every owner in America and make sure that they all know what their business is worth to start. And then we provide the ability to connect to other local service providers. If they say, okay, you are telling me my business is only worth half of what I thought it was, how do I still get it back up to the number that I think I want to sell it at? We help them do that and connect them to the right experts to do so. So that's, growth is a whole other issue. 40% of owners, small business owners, believe their next stage of growth comes from marketing, for example. So how can we tell them what their business is worth, show them the opportunities and some of the issues, like the risks that are involved in their current business that a buyer might see, and help them address those, grow the business if they want to, or at least address those and make the sale easier for them. So at the very least, they're not getting hit with a lowball offer and then just it taking 12 months. They might find the right offer for them, and it might only take 2 months, 3 months to close the deal.
So you've got the classic buyer and seller expectation disconnect. I certainly get that. Is there something in comparable to comparables in real estate? One of the things that kind of drives the process is comps. Is what did the houses on your circle sell for the last 3 years? Is there something similar with small businesses with all their different shapes and flavors and is there the opportunity as you guys grow to kind of aggregate all about those bestimates,
No, you're
to
good.
really start to, give a better sense as to what expectations should be, both for seller and buyer?
Yeah. We have we're working on a couple different comp options. Right now, we actually, on every listing on SMB, if you just look up a small business, we'll show you if we have them in our database at least, because a lot of these databases of comps are pretty private and we pay certain partners for a lot of this data. We aggregate it all together and then present that to users, for example, like buyers that are looking for a business. And so we present like 5 comparable sales similar to each individual business on their listing on SMB. So similar to Zillow, you'll see 5 similar houses that have sold. You'll see on SMB, you'll see 5 similar businesses that have sold. We also think that there's probably a lot of good insight in presenting sort of a bestimate comp instead of just a true sales comparable comp. But here's the actual values of the businesses near you that are in the same category that may or may not be competitors, but at least they're, same NAICS code, for example. And we are able to present them, here's how your value stacks up to others. So there's a sales comparables and like where others have sold. That also helps set expectations on the seller side. If these owners are saying, I think my business is worth 2 million, but every other one in their category is sold for about 1 million, it might set some of those expectations better. And typically, if an owner is approached by a broker or an M&A firm to help sell the business, or if they reach out to one of them, they also are sort of fighting those battles, which is why we also want to put our tech like in the hands of these brokers and M&A firms and anybody else who helps these small business owners. Because if we are going to help sell the next 1 million businesses, for example, we need to be more open and transparent about this data and about our processes and just making that more available to others.
So I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to, how you're helping to, I guess, engage the buyers in really being participants. The same challenge that Zillow had in engaging real estate agents to actually, not view it as a threat, but view it as a partner. I'm curious though, the process of selling small business on using your platform as effectively their agent to sell their business. I imagine that's got to be enormously challenging.
Yeah, it really, it doesn't really matter if they have a broker or not. We're willing to help them. We have in-house M&A counsel that helps them through that process, from a business health score through to listing, deciding if they want to do a public listing, which is like everybody can see your name and your business name and all the details, at least the publicly available information. Data rooms are still private. There's no reason to be sharing, your actual financial statements and stuff. But that whole process for getting an owner listed and making sure that we're able to go out and market their business for them is actually pretty straightforward based on the process that we've laid out. But one of the reasons that we built SMB, for example, is I 2 years ago was like just coming fresh out of a layoff, like our entire marketing team from a company that I had worked at. And I started looking into ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. And I actually ended up joining the Cincy ETA committee. Shout out to Dave Knox for bringing that group together. There's a couple hundred members of just, buyers, owners, service providers, brokers, anybody in the community that wants to be a part of it. And, I actually went on BizBuySell and a bunch of these other listing websites and tried to get a hold of one of the owners or the broker at least. And 3 days later, you would get a random link for one of those requests, and you'd have to sign some NDA that you you may not even know which business that was for or which listing that was for. And then the ability to get that SIM after signing an NDA was another couple days wait. And so that just continued. And I ended up thinking, why am I out here trying to search when I could build a platform that helps others search? Why would I try to compete with other people that I think I can help best? And so we ended up building SMB, but our process actually is a lot smoother, I think, than some of the other platforms that are really just listing sites. We think, there was no real incentive for Zillow to go farther down the path of, helping complete these home sales, for example. But in our industry, we have a lot more incentive to help complete these sales because we're already kind of priced into the market. If we can actually provide a lower fee structure and a transaction fee on helping somebody sell their business, that's a win. If we can actually give our tech to brokers and charge an even lower fee on our end while we help manage their deal, for them through our tech, then that's still a win. And at the end of the day, we're helping owners complete their sale. But the actual listing process, making sure an owner knows what their business is worth, helping them get their house in order so that it's really the big piece is mitigating as much risk for these owners as possible so that when a buyer looks at their listing or a SIM or anything that is involved with that business, the buyer goes, this person has done a really good job of preparing themselves for sale. During due diligence, there's far less questions and concerns and issues, and it becomes more of a relationship building portion of the transaction and how do we continue the growth or start the growth after sale is completed part of the process. So I think we've simplified a lot of it, honestly.
And it sounds like that it by its very nature, it's going to be a high touch kind of service. I don't want to say bespoke service, but there is going to be a great degree of kind of service required by the sellers that is hand holding, and is gently guiding them through kind of the steps in the process and overcoming their fears and concerns and all the rest.
Yeah.
How do you scale that? How do you guys envision basically your ability to do that the millions of transactions that you want to do?
Yeah. We think that's a combination of partners. So service providers, like people that are looking to help small business owners with growth, operations, finance. We think that others have tried to build growth sort of in-house, but Britt and I, Britt, my co-founder, we have marketing backgrounds. We've done growth in-house before. It's very hard to do for one business, let alone helping a million business owners do that, So we think that connecting them to local service providers actually helps us scale that program quite a bit better. Additionally, we have some very cool tech that we're building that would allow buyers and sellers to be able to directly ask each other questions that may or may not be related directly to M&A support or what an M&A advisor might typically provide. A lot of these things are a lot of these deal structures are very creative nowadays when they probably don't need to be. These owners have certain expectations for how they want to structure a deal, and finding the right buyer for them is important. But we think that 50 or 60% of these general questions, an owner might ask their broker or an M&A firm or their M&A advisor, or a buyer might even ask of the owner, could be actually answered through a trained AI model that is actually trained on that deal. When we build a data room, if we can have an AI model that is trained on everything within that data room, when a buyer asks a question, we can determine if that's a question that could be answered through the information that the owner has already provided, rather than needing to wait 3 or 4 days to get an answer on a specific question that's pretty minor and is within the documents, for example. We also think there's a lot of public knowledge around M&A and how those transactions have been run in the past. And this comp data, for example, that we collect, why can't we also collect the deal structures of past deals, where we can then present these potential options, these creative options, these standardized options to buyers and sellers to help answer some of those questions as well. We think that there's just a large repository of data that has not been sort of unlocked in the M&A space, and we hope to do that for people. And I think that's how we actually end up scaling, right? We have for example, 8 people on our team now. We have 1 in-house M&A person, and we think that we won't really need to scale that specific team necessarily. And at the end of the day, our strategy to work with M&A firms, brokers, others who run these deals, we can provide our tech to help service those customers better. And I think that's how we get closer and closer to helping sell those next million businesses, rather than trying to say, we need to go hire 300 M&A counsel advisors, whatever, in-house. That would be kind of especially in this new world of like AI, is just like not something that we need, right? We don't need an owner asking what an LOI is to a broker, for example. If we can just standardize the term and call it an offer, and they know exactly what that is, that type of stuff.
Brilliant. I mean, very interesting. I want to talk now about the seller side the buyer side.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about both the brokers and the M&A professionals. First of all, how many of them are there out there in the US?
A lot.
Do you have any idea?
In the US, there's probably M&A professionals. There's a lot more than 30 or 40,000, but there's probably, as far as like brokers, we know that there are 10 to 20, 25,000 maybe. A lot of them are unregistered. There's still a lot. It's kind of like a little bit of the Wild West out there on the broker side. There are a lot of M&A firms and law firms. On the buyer side, we, building the Zillow for small business means that we actually want and to be able to sell the next million small businesses, as a marketplace. We actually want to create a much larger market of buyers than there currently is, right? As soon as a person gets into like ETA and entrepreneurship through acquisition, or even just like, hey, I want to buy a coffee shop. Like everybody has talked to their significant other about opening their own coffee shop at one point or another, and just settling down and just doing that their whole life. But nobody, when you start to really truly think about buying a small business like that, it's just like immediately you're like, I don't even have the cash in the bank to give up $1 million or something, which you don't necessarily need that. And so we want to create a much larger market of buyers. We estimate that there's probably 40, 50, 60,000 buyers in the market right now. We think that a lot of current business owners, some of our ideal actual buyers are current business owners who have the right operational experience. So in that category, we actually have, millions of people that we could end up selling to. These small businesses. And we actually want to just make sure that, and we work with a couple of chambers of commerce right now. We're doing some tests. We basically want to just help ensure the continuity of these local businesses in local markets, run by sort of buyers that are in those local areas that know their communities best and can take over for those small business owners. Ideally, we don't help PE firms sell or buy every business in America. A lot of these, just like a coffee, you're not going to get PE into coffee anytime soon, for example. But they are in HVAC and plumbing, and those areas for buyers are very competitive. But we think there are plenty of buyers. We want to just simplify the process for them so that we can remove the things that don't really matter and let them focus on the community where that business is located and the operational side of that business and ensuring that their team is taken care of.
So as you make the marketplace more and more frictionless, and I hear all the ideas that you guys are working on to reduce that friction, what kind of keeps you up at night as far as, gosh, these are challenges that I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to make frictionless? I mean, any buyer-seller transaction, by definition, is never going to be perfectly frictionless.
Yeah.
But what are the things that you guys are anticipating are, boy, this is going to be a tough one to remove the friction on?
Like, take a step back on that. We actually have a very bad experience with OKRs, objectives and key results as startup founders ourselves working at past companies that ran OKRs. But there are one specific type of thing that we love, which is big bets. And one of the things that we are making a big bet on this year is that our marketplace, from a transparency perspective, is what everybody truly needs, but not everybody recognizes that they want. That is a really big bet for us. We're betting that our transparency model actually proves that owners should be able to just list openly, especially on the Main Street side, list their business openly, get their entire community involved in the sale of their business, and make sure that they can find the right buyer. It just increases the speed of the sale. It increases the transparency of the data, and honestly just improves the the pool of buyers, right? And it immediately gets some of these buyers to a no. But that transparency aspect is something that we're just like, that's what keeps me up at night. we've been working on a sort of model that allows, for brokers, for example, brokers have built and continue to sort of market this opaque model, this anonymized listing model, which is what you'll find on like BizBuySell or any of these other larger sort of listing sites. What we've built now is actually a model that allows brokers, lets the owners essentially create an anonymized version, a private version of their listing, right? As the Zillow for small business, we will list every business no matter what. We don't exactly take down listings for those. Every business deserves to get a bestimate to know what their business is worth to start. But if they want to put their business up for sale, and let's say this happens a lot with like owners that have maybe a 5 to 10 million plus total sale value sort of listing, they have a larger team, a larger pool of clients, they have more competitors. They may not want to publicly list fully transparently, So in those cases, we actually provide sort of a private listing where we'll anonymize their listing. They still get the off-market listing for their normal business, and then are provided this sort of privatized listing that they can go and share, and then SMB can market publicly. And we think that's a good middle ground. Like the increase of the buyer pool is actually, you can actually increase your buyer pool by 20% and the demand for your business just by making it more transparent rather than keeping it private. But we need to prove that to the rest of the market, right? There's only so much research on that topic, and we want to be able to provide the first, industry report that backs our big bet that transparency is a game changer for everybody involved, especially Main Street owners who have a business that's $1 million in total sale value or less.
Well, I for one would throw a few chips in on that bet. There's so much evidence, so many marketplaces that have, frankly, become revolutionary because of their transparency of what they've done. Whether it's Cars.com or, I can think of about 100 different ones that come to mind. But who's going to resist this? In other words, who's going to really want it to stay in the dark? Who's going to want it to be double secret? And I would imagine it's mostly on, frankly, the broker side, the broker and the M&A side. It's not necessarily on the seller side. They're proud of every piece of evidence they have that they've got a great and viable business. And I think on the buyer side, they're going to be like, yeah, I know what I can afford. I know what I want to do. I know what I'm capable of. And so I think that the direct relationship is between buyer and seller will probably be wonderfully effective when it's transparent. It's the brokers that we'll see how they really react to it.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to do, just as we wrap up, I want to just talk about one thing that just leaves me curious when it comes to the valuation of a small business in 2025. Is there evidence that you are starting to see in your bestimates that the valuation of the business is starting to now expand into areas that, frankly, don't check the traditional boxes of real estate, inventory, cash flow, et cetera, that kind of maybe go into the more intellectual property realm or go into the realm of digital assets and followings and that kind of things, as that whole kind of virtual dimension of a business becomes more and more real? Are you seeing evidence that will start to be put into the equation of the valuation of a business?
Yeah, I think that will pick up over time quite a bit, 2025 and on. This is like the year for AI. I think a lot of these buyers that are picking these businesses up now that are, implementing new processes, new tech, they're doing roll-ups and all this other type of stuff. I think that's what leads to sort of an IP that is very sellable within the business. I will say there's not a ton of these smaller businesses that have a lot of IP in what they do, 2024 and before. There's not a lot of small businesses that could have afforded tech. There's not a lot of agencies trying to sell these small businesses tech that they could even afford, like these small business owners like Main Street, which is 80% of the market, less than $1 million in total sale value. There's not a lot of IP in those businesses, but as they get rolled up and put into these processes and systems from these very tech savvy buyers, honestly, who are running their own self-search processes and stuff, they are operations experts at heart. I think there's going to be a lot of IP in how they build those businesses from 2025 and on. I think in the next 10 years, we'll end up seeing a lot of these small businesses with a ton of IP, actually, at the very least, around their sales processes, their customer retention, customer concentration is a big thing that we like to track for owners and help them track, because that's a big piece of why a buyer might be interested in what they're selling. If you have 1,000 customers that all pay a much lower amount, there's more of an appetite for that versus like a small business that may only have 10 customers that all charge them a slightly higher fee and they are sort of recurring, but the likelihood that there's like a key person problem in those is pretty high. So like, I think over time, these very tech savvy buyers are going to change that. There's going to be a lot more IP sold in these smaller transactions over time, but I don't think that that's happened in the past, unfortunately.
Joe Brown, both fascinating and inspiring. I think that you certainly do represent entrepreneurship very, very well. And I think that what you're building is fascinating. It's not just a clever catchphrase. The Zillow is small business. It's got a lot of substance behind it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah,
Looking
absolutely. Excited to chat again soon.
Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Between Two Bs, the official podcast of the B2SMB Institute and our 5,000 plus business to small business professionals. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes at the crossroads of the big B and the small B. Between Two Bs on your favorite streaming services.